Hi everyone, my name is Anna Schell and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at TutorCore. Today I'm going to train you to become one of our expert SAT tutors. Before I get started, I'd recommend you have two tools sitting beside you for this training. The first tool is the Black Book SAT Guide, second edition. If you don't have one of these already, contact your manager and we'll send you one right away. The other is printed out copies of the College Board's free practice tests numbers 1 through 4. These tests go hand in hand with the Black Book and they're a really helpful reference throughout this training. You may also want to download the handouts and notes that are associated with this training to help follow along. We have a lot to get through, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will dive right in here. So SAT tutoring involves supporting students not only with the content and strategies of the test itself, but also involves managing expectations and global planning. And we're going to cover all of that in this training. So let's go ahead and first talk about some of the basic elements of standardized test prep. So a standardized test is defined as any multiple choice test that requires all test takers to answer the same set of questions in the same way, scored in a consistent manner, meant to compare the performances of individual test takers. And the tests that we tutor include SAT, ACT, those are the standardized tests for college entrance. We also offer tutoring in the SSAT, the ISEE, and HSPT, which are standardized tests for entrance into independent elementary, middle, and high schools. Occasionally, we also get requests to support with prep for entrance exams to graduate programs, and also the California High School exit exam. So standardized test prep includes three basic elements. One is learning about the test itself, so that includes the structure of the test, the basic sections of the test that the students will encounter. The other is learning the content, so as we'll discuss later, that's been condensed into what the Black Book refers to as toolboxes for each section of the SAT. And most importantly, learning the strategies. So quickly, we'll go through all three of these. So learning about the test, that's really the easiest part to tackle. Very straightforward, shouldn't take more than 5% of overall test prep time. So that's really the what, where, who, when, how, whys of the test. The second piece, the learning the content, that includes all the concepts, topics, and terms the College Board claims as its main metric to gauge achievement. And the actual amount of content a student needs to know to do well on this test is pretty minimal compared to the amount of strategy they need to understand. Unless a student has major gaps to fill, I'd say no more than roughly 35% of the test prep tutoring should be spent on mastering content. If the student is lacking in some basic math or grammar skills, you may want to consider starting early on mastering some of the toolkits in your tutoring work. So then that brings us to learning the strategies. So that's the most important element of test prep. So this is teaching students how to attack the test strategically. That's your main job as a test prep tutor, and you're there to really help them think like the test maker, get into the minds of the College Board, and hack the test by understanding the mechanics behind the test itself and its limitations. And there's 3 levels of strategy, and we'll discuss these in detail later on. We'll also go over some specific lesson ideas around teaching strategy that can be applied to your planning for your first test prep student. Let's talk about materials for a minute. So when you request to tutor the SAT with TutorCore, we'll provide you with a very specific set of resources. The SAT Prep Black Book Second Edition, that's your main resource to support your SAT students with test prep strategy. It's long, but the book's mainly made up of walkthroughs of test questions and answers, and we'll go through what those are later in the training and how you use those. Keep in mind, we provide these same materials to students, so we really expect all of our tutors will be using the Black Book as their main resource. However, if you have supplementary materials that you want to incorporate into your tutoring, we're totally open to it. It's important when using the Black Book to also have available the College Board's practice tests 1 through 4 for reference. These practice tests are either available for download free online, or they also appear in the College Board's Blue Book. And if you prefer to get the book rather than print those tests out, we're happy to send the book to you. We don't actually use the Blue Book or information provided by the College Board for anything other than mining the practice questions out of the book. The College Board has no incentive to teach students how to hack their tests, so they really don't provide any useful information around strategy. If you need additional resources during the course of your tutoring, you might consider tapping Khan Academy. They've partnered with the College Board to provide an entire SAT test prep curriculum. Again, we warn tutors and students away from following that curriculum because they are not going to teach you very good strategy, but Khan is a good resource for explanations of basic content and practice in content areas. You can see some other options here to mine practice problems, but we really believe that the primary materials of the Black Book and the Blue Book, or their free downloadable tests, are plenty to work with. Okay, so your job as an SAT tutor, your job is really more of a teacher than a tutor. That means you need to come to sessions prepared with lesson plans. But this training, along with the resources that we provide to you, should really provide enough scaffolding to approach it with an overarching plan and then specific plans around every lesson without too much trouble. So a big part of your job is helping frame this test to your student. It's not an intelligence test, it's a test of how well the student can think like a test maker and understand the limitations of a standardized test. They need to really understand that the SAT is unlike any other test they'll see in school, and so they need to start reframing their approach to how they're studying for it. So how you're going to help. You're going to be helping with big picture planning and calendaring, so some of those logistics around taking the test, demystifying what they can expect to find on the test itself. You're going to be helping them find content gaps and fill them. You're going to be helping them learn how to approach each section of the test in the most strategic way possible. You'll be helping them understand how to use the resources available to them and the practice questions in the most effective and efficient way possible. And you'll be helping hold them accountable for maintaining a study and practice test schedule. And most importantly, you are their best and most supportive advocates. And sometimes this means being realistic. So you really want to help your students face facts. What's achievable, what's not, what are the biggest hurdles they're going to face, and how can these be overcome? A quick word on learning differences. So standardized tests can be a real challenge for students with learning differences, which is why a lot of students with LDs have accommodations. And when I'm talking about learning differences, this includes ADHD, ADD, dyslexia, dysgraphia. It's really important to know early on if your student has a diagnosed LD and know if they have accommodations. Some will get to take the test untimed or with time and a half, in which case all of their practice should be done in the same manner. Occasionally you might find that a student doesn't have a diagnosed LD, but they seem to be having a lot of trouble making progress in their tutoring, and you might suspect that there's something going on. If this is the case, please immediately come and talk with your manager about it. Don't approach the family directly. This has happened in the past and not ended well. So talk to us, talk to your manager. We'll find a way to approach it together. Okay, so what's coming up in this training? So in this training, we're really trying to help you become both an SAT expert and also an expert SAT tutor. And those kind of require two different things. You need to be an expert at taking the test, and you also need to be an expert at teaching it. So we've broken down the training into a few parts. The first part focuses more around logistics, getting set up with a new test prep student, how to approach those first sessions. Then we'll go into more details about the SAT test itself. Then we'll talk about how you might structure your sessions and get into some general test prep strategy. After that, we'll really dive into each section of the test. We'll be moving through test sections in the same order we recommend you move through your test prep tutoring, starting with the reading section. I do include a short video on science that you may encounter on the SAT, even though there's not a science section. There are going to be questions involving science, and so we have a quick video on that. But then we move through the training as you will move through your tutoring. So starting with the reading section, moving on to the math section, the writing and language section, and then finally the essay. And in the final few videos, we'll offer some last tips and follow-up suggestions. Okay, so that's it for now. Becoming an expert test prep tutor with TutorCore requires some initial time investment, initial investment of energy, but what you do when you're doing that is you make yourself a real asset to the team, because we always have a need for great test prep tutors. And once you learn how to tutor one standardized test, it's much easier to learn the others. So thanks for your participation, and see you in the next video.